everyone, and welcome to the RMIS Foot and Mouth Disease Update. My name is Corlia Oberholzer. I am the Operations Manager at RMIS, and today I'm joined by Dr. Peter Evans, who will help us unpack the latest development on FMD. This includes vaccine matching, import timelines, and just what the farmers can practically expect from us. So, Dr. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start with Pirbright. Many people have heard the name, but not everyone knows what exactly they are or what they do. So who is Pirbright? What do they do? And perhaps you can maybe just explain a little bit about the Dolvet vaccine matching process.
Sure, thank you very much. So Pirbright is what's called a world reference laboratory. They are situated in the UK. And basically it's, if you want, a genetic bank. So they are able to give the genetic and the trees, gene trees around all sorts of different organisms, viruses mainly, so that they can determine the relationship between viruses that are in one country and viruses in a different country. And then when you extrapolate that, they can also then, once we make a vaccine, be able to match whether the strains that are in a particular country that are circulating in disease outbreaks and the vaccine strain are similar enough. The more similar the vaccine strains are to a strain of circulating virus, the more effective that the vaccine is going to be. Honestport is also a reference lab, a regional reference lab. And normally what happens is that the regional reference labs will share their samples that they have from various disease outbreaks. They share that with Pirbright. So, Pirbright's like the central laboratory, and then you have branches all around the world of reference laboratories. And so the last time we shared strains from South Africa was about 2011. And recently, in the last few weeks, we've sent samples of our circulating viral strains for FMD Pirbright for matching of vaccines that we want to purchase in the future. The Dolvet vaccine, the first batches, they did send some samples to Pirbright, and the matching with the strains that we had back in 2011 is very good. And what we do know is that our strains haven't changed that much over the last 14 or 15 years. So the first batches of vaccine that come in are going to work quite well, very well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then let's move on to vaccine importation. Now, I think the question that all the farmers are asking, why is it taking so long for the vaccines to come into the country?
I think the important thing to understand is that we have a very rigorous medicines control policy in South Africa to ensure that any medicines, health products, whether it's human or veterinary, that are brought into the country are brought in based on safety, efficacy, that the products that come in will do what they meant to do and cause no harm. SAPRA is the organization that is a regulating authority that needs to make sure that that mandate is followed. So when we want to import a vaccine or a health product that is not already registered in the country, one has to go to SAPRA and ask for what's called a Section 21 permit. And the Section 20 will then be evaluated, the application's evaluated based on various factors, and then they would give permission for that vaccine to be imported or that health product to be imported under that particular permit. After that, the process is that an import permit needs to be executed or given from the Department of Agriculture, because this is now a veterinary product, and then the vaccine can come into the country. I think to add to that, as you might know, the minister appointed a ministerial task team to help with this controlled disease of FMD. And one of the subgroups on that ministerial task team is a group of specialists in vaccines who evaluate any of the information, scientific information that the manufacturer can give us, and then decide whether we would recommend that SAPRA look at the application. So there is a process that's followed, and for good reason.
Okay, so it is quite a lengthy process that it goes through.
It's a process that needs to be followed. It doesn't have to be that lengthy. The better the information that's supplied initially to SAPRA, the quicker they can evaluate a dossier. Currently, we are asking them to try and do these applications and approvals within the shortest possible time to prioritize them, because obviously FMD vaccines are not the only applications they have on their desk.
Okay, and then Dr. Peter, we've also heard a lot about the types of vaccine. Words are being thrown around like monovalent, bivalent, trivalent, oil-based, water-based. So perhaps you can just clarify for us the types of vaccine, what it's used for and how it works.
So in a vaccine, obviously you have the particular virus, in this case, that you want to vaccinate, immunize animals against. And in South Africa, or in Southern Africa rather, we have what are called SAT strains, and there are 3 big groups of SAT strains, 1, 2, and 3. And so if that vaccine contains only one strain, so only against 1 or 2, we would call that a monovalent vaccine. So it's only against a single strain, whereas a trivalent includes all 3 strains, so SAT1, 2, and 3. And now and again, you would find pentavalent strains. So that vaccine would include 2 other strains, typically A and O, which are the Asian strains. So that's where those names of mono, bivalent, trivalent, pentavalent come from. Depends how many different strains of that particular virus you have in the vial, in the vaccine dose. Vaccines, typically you have a virus, and then obviously you need some kind of liquid material to carry it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to inject it. And you have 2 broad types of carriers, often called adjuvants. One of them is water-based, so aqueous, and the other one is oil-based. In general terms, the water-based ones give a shorter immunity, but often the immune response is a lot quicker. With the oil-based ones, the immunity, the protection period is much longer. So we choose vaccines to be used in various settings based on how quickly you're going to get a response and how long that immune response would last.
Okay, and then perhaps you can also just in simple terms explain what is a target product profile and why it is important for us.
So the vaccine subgroup of the Ministerial Task Team needs to make sure that these vaccines that we're going to import will do the job we want them to do. So a target product profile basically is a set of criteria that the vaccine is evaluated against to make sure that they'll do what we want it to do, so that it has enough potency, so it will create a good immune response. And then, as I said before, that the duration of that immune response will be accurate. And obviously, most importantly, is that vaccine that you're importing actually has the strains of the virus pretty well matched to what is circulating in the country. It's basically, we got the right viral material in that vial, and it's going to cause the right immune response. And that's what they look at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for clarifying that for us. I think we can move on to the next question. It's probably the biggest question that's on everyone's mind and that everyone wants to know is when can we expect vaccines and from which supplier? So what's the basic status on all of the vaccines coming in?
Thank you. Let me answer that. So I think one of the important things to note is that from when a manufacturer gets a firm order, they then need to start the manufacturing process. So in some cases, they need to grow virus. And once they've grown the virus strains that are in the vaccine, they then need to process them and make sure that the virus is inactivated. So from the time that one approves a vaccine for import, it can take a little bit of time before we get that vaccine. So on the horizon, fortunately for us, within the next week or so, we should get the first shipment of aqueous-based vaccine from Turkey, the Dolvet vaccine, 1.5 million doses, which is obviously going to go a long way to helping us start this mass rollout program that we want to start. And then the honest biological products are getting vaccine from the ARC. So the ARC has started coming on board. And so they are going to be able to give us amount of vaccine next week of about 12,000 doses, and then they'll be able to give us somewhere around 20,000 doses a week after that. And then BVI, we remember that BVI have annual close down for recalibrating and cleaning the laboratory and basically doing housekeeping and maintenance. So they are beginning to come back on track. Their SAT2 virus that they're growing, vaccine strain that they're growing, they're going to have that ready for us probably by the end of February, but it'll only be SAT2, so monovalent. And we'll have to look at where we're able to use that vaccine appropriately. We'll have to match it to what's circulating in whichever municipality or district. And then after that, we will hopefully be getting on a monthly basis after that, sort of from end of March onward, about 700 a month of a trivalent. So that'll include SAT 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, and what happened, or another development that we heard this week is that Design Biologics will no longer be the agent for biogenesis. So what does this mean for the FMD vaccine importation from biogenesis, and how will this affect timelines?
So I think obviously when a new manufacturer comes into a country or so a supply of vaccine, there needs to be some kind of commercial relationship and a representative. So that took a while to sort out. Design was certainly one of the options that they had, and they have now decided to develop a relationship with Honest Word Biological Products. Yeah, so that all of that paperwork is still taking place. So firm orders for the Biogenesis vaccine are still to be placed, but we had already suggested way back that it was a good match for South Africa getting vaccines from them. So a lot of the paperwork as far as applying for SAPRA permits had already taken place. So we're hoping that that paperwork process will be finished quite soon. And then obviously, as I said earlier, it takes a while from a firm order for them to manufacture. So we're not expecting any vaccine from Biogenesis for at least a few to a couple of weeks. So I think probably March might be the earliest that we'll get. And they have only SAT 1 and 2 viral strains at the moment. They're developing their SAT 3 strain. So the first shipment we get from them is more than likely going to be a bivalent, just 1 and 2. And thereafter, they'll be able to give us a trivalent vaccine. For us, the trivalent is a much better option in that you can start applying vaccines immediately should we have an emergency, an outbreak somewhere in an isolated spot, and we aren't 100% sure which one of the SAT strains is circulating there. So that will take a while, but we're excited. I think Biogenesis is going to give us good quality vaccines as well.
Okay, perfect. That is good to hear that it still means that Biogenesis is going to come into the country. So, Dr. Peter, the last question that I want to ask you before we end this off is just to maybe discuss the Section 10 scheme. So we've been hearing that the task team is working on it. Perhaps you can just explain to us what the Section 10 scheme is and what we can expect from it.
Section 10 schemes are schemes that are created under the Animal Diseases Act. So Section 10 is a section of the Animal Diseases Act which allows for schemes to be developed. We already have 1 or 2 schemes. Most farmers will be familiar with the brucellosis scheme. So it is a set of guidelines, rules, legislation which determines exactly how a certain disease will be handled. It can also be a parasite, for instance, if we wanted to, or there was a need for internal parasites, worms, for instance, that we needed a scheme, one could also create a scheme. So it's quite a process to create a scheme. It needs to be done in a very legal format because it is part of legislation eventually. And what the Section 10 scheme is going to do for us is allow anybody who has the control measures that are in place, which include traceability, have identification, and have a specific need to be able to say that they are vaccinated. For instance, a feedlot, that they are vaccinated, which would determine the opportunity to export for stud breeders who want to have a vaccination scheme on their farm so that they can with confidence be able to sell genetic material to other people with all the checks and balances in place. I think one of the things that one must realize is that going forward, being vaccinated against FMD is actually going to be a positive. People are going to want to know that the calves they buy, the bulls they buy, the genetic material they buy is vaccinated and therefore a much safer commodity than an unvaccinated animal in a country where there's a lot of FMD around. So it's going to give a lot of comfort to farmers who want to be part of the scheme. It will be a voluntary scheme. You don't have to be part of the scheme, but it certainly will give some guarantees and a level of comfort to farmers who want to be part of the scheme.
Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for your clear explanations. To our listeners, thank you for joining us. We will definitely keep on doing these updates as information become available. Until next time, have a good day.